Steeler fans, what's going on? This is Jeff Hartman, editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. We have a special guest today for the Steelers one-on-one segment of our program, and it is none other than two-time Super Bowl champion offensive tackle for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Max Starks. He joins us with co-host Lance Williams. Max, how you doing tonight?
Man, I am doing well. Football is back. This is game week. I am excited. No more rehearsals. It's the big times.
Now, I got to ask you real quick, before we get into the Patriots and Steelers matchup on Sunday Night Football, I want to know, because I'm sure you keep tabs on the Steelers, the team that drafted you. What's your overall impression on this team in 2019? Because they lost a lot. We all know about Antonio Brown leaving. But what are your thoughts about this team and the potential they have this season?
Better. That's the word that I'll use. They're going to be better than last year. And I say that because when you look at how the culture was before, when you look at the distractions that were there before, they're not here. The Antonio Brown distractions are all for the Raiders. That's what they signed for. That's what they gave them all that signing bonus for. They got all that attention. And the Steelers have just been under the radar, quietly doing good work, gaining chemistry, and getting better as a team. So I think the word is better, and I think they and Cleveland are the two that contend for the top of this division.
Before we jump into the Pats breakdown, does that translate to them being legitimate Super Bowl contenders?
I think it does. I don't think that this Sunday will necessarily be a preview of what December/January football is going to look like, but I think it lets you know the mind state and the confidence that a team can have, especially if they can march into Foxborough and get a victory, because I think that's where the championship game is going to lie at the end of the year. So if you can go in there and get a warm-up, get comfortable, mark your spot, mark your territory, and get out of there with a W, I think it bodes well for them.
So speaking of the Patriots, let's jump into the breakdown real quick while we got you. Take a look at the offensive side of football. How does Tom Brady and this Patriot offense attack this Steeler defense, one that has Bush, Barron, and a lot more speed in the 2019 edition?
Well, I think right now you look at where Julian Edelman is, and I think controlling that middle of the field is going to be a lot tougher for the Patriots than they have in years past. You look at that Chargers game last season where you didn't have the foot speed at linebacker to really keep up with those intermediate between the hash routes that Keenan Allen kind of just feasted on last year against Vince Williams. I think now with the Devin Bush, you have a guy who covers you in the quote-unquote Tampa 2 zone, just naturally off his ability without having to play Tampa 2. And I think that bodes very good for them. I think when you look at the tight ends, I don't think the tight ends can really run with anybody in here, so I think they can be covered. I mean, the X factor is going to be Josh Gordon. How does Josh Gordon get free? When does he get his yards? Because we know Josh Gordon's going to get his catches and get his plays, and does that burn the Steelers enough that it makes it tough on them to stay 7 in the box and have to bail out a guy so that they can defend if Shoney Michel wants to run the football?
Well, let's go to the other side of the football. And my question for you is, you were drafted the same year as Ben Roethlisberger, and he's been in the league for a really long time. And there's been a lot of people that have questioned him. And, everyone called Antonio Brown a security blanket, and he would just throw the ball up. I'm sure you have faith in Roethlisberger being able to kind of execute an offense that's more spread out. But how do you really see Roethlisberger in this chess match with Bill Belichick and the Patriots defense coming up on primetime?
Well, I think this bodes well. This is probably the best matchup Ben's had in a while against Belichick as far as the offensive weapons, because Belichick thrives on getting rid of your best option. And right now, in the past, you think of a chessboard, Antonio Brown's kind of been that queen piece, and then Le'Veon Bell has been a bishop. So you could go for those back row guys. I feel like now he has more frontline guys and more knights at his disposal. And I think that's what's going to make it a challenge is, who am I going to take out? Okay, am I going to take out Juju? Well, okay, I forgot there's a whole backfield with James Conner, Jalen Samuels, Benny Snell, all these guys in the backfield. And then, okay, if I take Juju, now James Washington has an opportunity. Dante Moncrief has an opportunity. Those guys creep in. Don't forget Vance McDonald. Vance is a very strong option. He's like a low post defender in the middle of the field. So there are too many options to really cover one guy and try and eliminate them. You're going to have to do a great job of spreading the field and just keeping everything in front of you, which I think is how they're going to attack this offense, is try and keep it in front of you. Don't let anybody get behind you. as opposed to just isoing a guy like they've done in years past.
You touched on Sony Michel in the game and how the Steelers can contain Sony Michel. Do you think they can contain him playing sub-package defense? Because I think that's probably one of the biggest keys in this game. Can they play nickel and dime and survive the running game, especially when the Patriots play in, with two running backs on the field, with Devlin on the field as a fullback offset?
I think they have a shot, but, the one thing I always worry about is just the depth of the defensive line. Like the front line, A1, aces, top crew, Pro Bowl level caliber. I worry about when you do rotate in, when guys do need a breath, when they do have to go to a four-man line, can those guys hold up? Can Bud Dupree consistently turn back the offensive tackle and set the edge to force a cutback as opposed to letting the guy get to the outside? That's my first thing. I think TJ Watt is good at doing that at times, but it's really going to come down to whoever's the outside guy on the 4-down look. Can he turn Sony Michel back in? Because that's where you're really going to need him to be, because that's where Devin Bush is at his best. Between the tackles, getting in the open second level, Devin Bush can go weed out everything. But if you're having him run sideline to sideline because your ends aren't turning the guys back in, that's when it's going to be a long day.
Now, you mentioned defensively, Bill Belichick likes to take away your top option. I think we'll all agree that that's Juju Smith-Schuster now for the Steelers offense. We are going to ask you for a game prediction here in a second, but my question for you is, if you were to predict the one player, last year it was Jalen Samuels who accrued 172 yards total in this matchup because they just didn't account for him. They were too busy focused on everyone else. Who's that player that if the Steelers are going to gash the Patriots offensively, who's the person you're putting your money on to do the job?
James Washington.
Okay.
That's the guy I think is going to have a very good day underneath. And I think he's going to be that slot guy that's going to get some of the – is not going to get the attention because of a Juju on the field. And I think even if you line him up opposite Juju in a one-on-one situation, I think they roll zone to him and they keep man on Juju. So I think that's kind of where he could be a man beater. And he could possibly do that if they do decide to roll zone to Juju. I think he could feast in that situation.
Well, it's prediction time. Everything says all the historical stats. Brady, Belichick, now 6-time world champions. They can't be defeated. The flag is being dropped. It's opening weekend. Can the boys go in there and slay the dragon?
I think this is the year that they can. Just because I feel like this dragon isn't as strong, A. They've done too much trading in the preseason to get linemen they feel are good enough to block for Brady that have to learn a playbook. And even though Skarnecki is a great offensive line coach, still too short a time to get 5 men on the same page and with the chemistry you need for Tom Brady. I think it's going to be tough sledding for them week 1 again. And I think this is where the Steelers will finally get that monkey off their back. I think this is like a 35-24 game.
All right. Very good. Well, Max, I want to give you a chance to let the fans, we have a lot of people watching live right now on YouTube. Tell us what you're doing, how they can connect with you on social media and things like that.
Wait a second. Do we have enough time for that? No, just joking. No, here's the thing. So for the next month, Saturdays in the afternoon on the East Coast, I will be calling the next 4 Conference USA games for NFL Network. So you'll see me on NFL Network on Saturdays calling the college games. You will also hear me on SiriusXM NFL Radio filling in randomly. In fact, I'll be doing tomorrow night the post-game recap after the Bears-Packers game. Then starting in October, I'll be doing SEC Radio for SiriusXM, doing their Friday tailgate show in the afternoons, getting ready for SEC Saturdays. And then after that, you'll catch me on Stadium Network or possibly Fox Sports, calling some games for either Big 12, Conference USA, or Mountain West.
That's awesome stuff, man. Lance, anything to add?
Sounds like you're a busy guy.
Yeah, but I always make time for you, Lance. Just remember that.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Max. Appreciate it. See you. All right, so big thanks to Max Starks out there for taking the time and spending some time with Steeler Nation. And Lance and I just want to mention that we are going to be doing another show tonight at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time, in which case we're going to be bringing on a Pat's Pulpit. That's the SB Nation Vox Media Patriots website. We're bringing in one of their podcasters, and we're going to talk with him about the other side of the fence. So we're always talking about the Steelers side and what the Steelers are going to do. But I want to get the Patriots perspective. So we have Bo Phillips coming on. So if you're here right now, understand we're going to be back in a few hours to talk more Steelers and Patriots. So if you like this content, you're going to love tonight. I'll tell you that. Lance, from what Max said, anything stand out that you're like, man, this is some great insight? It was good. It was a good interview.
Well, he predicted them to win, which was well, not necessarily shocking, but 35-24?
You predicted a defensive game right before we went on the air.
Yeah, wow, 35-24. I'm just looking at last year's game over and over and over again. And even looking at the game the year before in 2017, I mean, the Steelers did not score 30 points in either one of those matchups. And the one thing about the 2017 game that just stood out was just the offensive talent that the Steelers had was just unbelievable in 2017. I mean, you had Mr. Buttnaked get robbed.
It was
James
for me to say Antonio Brown in that interview.
Yeah, it was. James Conner, Mr. Buttnaked get robbed, Mr. Third and Fifth. Martavis, Juju was the third wide receiver. I mean, come on, man. Juju Smith-Schuster was the third wide receiver, and the offensive line was intact. That offensive talent in 2017 was ridiculous, and they still didn't score in the 30s in that game, partially because they took a touchdown off the board. But, man, 35-24, that would be a fantastic start. Just on the, the Richter scale. What would be the Richter scale setting if the Steelers win in Foxborough and won 35-24? I'm guessing like 15 on the Richter scale.
It would be DEFCON 4 in Pittsburgh, that's for sure. If we go to DEFCON, I do want to get to a super chat here. Vernon, he put $4.99 in the super chat in the tip jar. We appreciate it. And he predicted a 33-17 Steelers win. Yikes. That's almost as bad as the last time the Steelers won in Foxborough was 33-10. And that was in 2008, November. If you recall, it was pouring down rain. There was no Tom Brady. That was the year that he tore his ACL in week 1 against Kansas City. It was Matt Castle. I think Ryan Clark killed 2 players in that game, and James Harrison killed a third.
Yes.
And that was a thrashing.
Yes.
But that's the last time they've won in Foxborough.
And he killed Matt Light that game, too. He was
killed.
He was absolutely abusing Matt Light. I was like, wow. He's killing. What was the guy's name? I'm flubbing on the name of the slot receiver.
Wes
that
Welker.
Ryan Clark. Oh yeah, he killed Wes Welker. I mean, that's launching. He would have been out for like 5 games.
Rest in peace.
I mean, he would have been out maybe half a season if he did that hit in today's current football. But
Yeah.
I can't really disagree with a lot that Max said. I think when I look at the Patriots, I really think that this defense matches up pretty well against them. I mean, Josh Gordon is obviously, that outlier, that guy, that big physical talent that's, even in an NFL, his talent and his physical abilities at an elite level that can wreck your game. But I don't know if there's anyone else that you fear when looking at this Patriots offense.
The thing that he said that made me kind of think to myself, okay, he predicted James Washington to be the breakout player for the Steelers offense. And it just so happens that today I was doing an article on Ben Roethlisberger's media session, and he talked a lot about Jalen Samuels. And I went back and looked at the box score of that game last season, and he had 142 yards rushing. He had 2 receptions for 30 yards. He had 172 yards. This was the first time in his life, people, not Pop Warner, not high school, not college, that he rushed for over 100 yards was against the New England Patriots in the NFL. And Ben kind of said this without saying it. It was because they didn't know what to expect from him, and they didn't really account for him. And so when I heard that, I'm thinking, okay, well, who's going to be that guy this year? Because everyone said it, and I can't remember who said it in the live chat, but someone did, that the Patriots like to take away your top 2 options, and they force you to go to a third. And so if James Washington is going to be the third option, well, who's the number 2 option that they're taking away? Who do you think that would be, Lance? We know Juju's 1, right? We agree on that, yes?
Yes.
So
James Conner. It's James Conner.
So you think they're going to load the box to stop the run and then bracket Juju on one side and leave Man on the other?
I think they will allocate as few resources as possible to stop the run. So if they can stop the run with a 7-man box, 6-man box to play really light and stop the run, then they stop both.
If
I
they
think
run a 6-man box, the Steelers should run the freaking football every single time because they will run it down their throat.
think about it. Is Ben disciplined enough to do that if he counts 6?
If you stay out of no huddle, he doesn't. I don't think he calls the plays outside of the no huddle. And if you notice, outside of the no huddle against the Titans, when did they move the ball? When they weren't in the no huddle, and they started running the football. So for me, if they can stay within manageable down and distances, they can run the ball on this team. I know they got Bennett, who's an upgrade, and they've got another big guy on the defensive front. But this Steelers offensive line, for as good as they are in pass protection, they're also a good run blocking team, and they can open up holes. And James Conner has looked really good in his limited time in the preseason. I'm just saying, just from what you said, if the Patriots have 6 in the box, then Ben better be checking the runs. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that counter toss play that they ran last year to Samuels was devastating against the Patriots. And I think actually as a line, I think they block best out of shotgun.
They do. They absolutely do. That's why Rosie Nix doesn't play. It's not because they hate Rosie Nix. They're better. They're better in the shotgun.
It gives them some time. I don't know if they're the most physical line up front. No. I wouldn't describe the line as road graders, but they're angle blockers. They set guys up. They get angles, and they allow running backs to create. Sort of like in music. I mean, it's kind of stripped down, really organic, and it allows artists to kind of have room and freedom within the music. I think that's kind of how they block. You don't see guys on their backs, but they give backs enough room and let backs kind of slow to the hole and explode through, and gives them their time to set stuff up. And I think they're going to work better this year, I think, as they're more comfortable with Connor's running style. So I think the running game is live. I think the running game is live on both sides. I mean, the Patriots ran it well against the Steelers last year. So, it's going to be interesting. I'm kind of taken aback when he said 35-24. I was like, oh, wow. Like, like I did not think high scoring. I'm not surprised that Max picked the Steelers to win, but high scoring, 35 points at home, week 1 Belichick. I mean, we've seen it with the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, we've seen them run up there and just get busy. But, that's interesting. 35-24,
Okay, I don't want to get too in-depth on the breakdown, but that's going to be for tonight's show at 9:30. So, and that's Eastern time, by the way. So 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is when we're going to have Bo on from the Pat's Pulpit, and we're going to talk a lot about this game afterwards. But we want to answer a couple of your questions before we wrap up this Steelers one-on-one show and take a few hour break, and then we'll get back to it. So Nick John asks, is Kelly, and he's talking about Cameron Kelly, at safety, is he going to be starting? It's undecided right now, but I will say that it's looking like he will, because Sean Davis did not practice today on Wednesday. That doesn't mean that Sean Davis couldn't participate Thursday and Friday and be fine, but at the same time, as of right now, it's looking like either he or Mike Hilton. They talked about moving Mike Hilton back to safety and having some fluid movement back there. That is an option. Lance, if Sean Davis doesn't play, how big of a deal is that?
I think it's a big deal. I mean, more so in base, given how many times they play base. I mean, a young player, going up against arguably the greatest quarterback of all time, that's advantage Patriots. I think there's a concern there. I think you would rather have Sean Davis back there, the more experienced player. However, depending on what packages that they're in, maybe they hide him in the middle of the field as that box dime linebacker, and he does that. And Mike Hilton, who's possibly more comfortable on the back end, playing that deeper safety role.
There you go. Let's do a couple rapid fires here. Reed asks, are you surprised a move wasn't made for a tight end? Well, I understand that they did try to make a move. They put in a waiver claim for a tight end that was released by the Cardinals, and their claim was denied because it was granted to the Cleveland Browns, who are a higher designation on the waiver claim. So there you go. Vodka Drinker, he said, does the injury report come out today or tomorrow? It came out today.
Yes, it did.
only Sean Davis is the only player listed for the Pittsburgh Steelers to missing practice. And the Patriots, I think the biggest name was Demaryius Thomas was listed as limited. You know how the Patriots run their reports. So, yeah, Reed says Ola was a full participant. Yes, he was. So he should be getting a helmet. There you go. Nicholas, here's one for you, Lance. Is it time to have trust in the secondary?
Wait and see.
No, you pulled a Dave Schofield. You got to answer the question.
I'm going to say yes, but if I'm going to say yes, but if they get shredded on Sunday, don't overreact.
Okay. I agree. And I wrote an article about that last week that said if it was a letter from the editor, if the Steelers stumble in week 1, they don't go to the Clemente Bridge and thrust yourself off. And I got absolutely grilled for it, Lance. People were like, no, this is the biggest game of the year. And it's like, guys, it's week 1. I know it's an AFC game.
You're so likable, Jeff. You got grilled. You know what? It feels great that you got grilled, and I'm not the only guy getting ripped to shreds.
People getting ripped. A lot of times the articles I write for you get ripped, and I'm like, I didn't even do the stupid podcast. Okay. Snowman gives us $5 in the tip tray. Says, do you think the Steelers will still go after a tight end? What do you think about that, Lance?
No time soon. I think they'll let it play out for the next couple of weeks and see what happens.
I got asked. Okay, I don't know. You can see these on the screen, right, Lance?
Yeah, well, Lance be doing it. Yeah, I said it. I was wrong about Hayden's contract. Sure, I'll do that. Yeah, I said it. I was wrong about it. We were all wrong, though. But hey, it's fine.
Yeah, I know.
It's fine. It's fine. I wanted to ask, who was the guy that had the medicinal? And I was going to ask the guy, who's the guy, Nick, that asked a question a couple of questions ago? I think he just asked a question.
About what?
Well, he looked like he had a cigarette or something in his mouth.
Okay.
I was going to ask him if that was medicinal. That's all.
I got you. All right, here we go. Let's have a question here. Do you feel that facing the Patriots in week 1 will be an advantage for the Steelers? In other words, lack of tape on the new look defense, offense, etc.
No, I don't think so, because you have, arguably the greatest quarterback of all time. I mean, he's seen everything. There's not going to be too much that you can fool him with. And if you do it, like Tomlin said earlier this week in his press conference, and I know you're impressed, Jeff. I actually listened to a press conference.
No, you didn't. Wait a second. So you heard this one?
Yes, yes.
Oh, you heard some great Tomlinisms. He called Javon Hargrave Blockbuster.
Blockbuster, yes. You got to diversify. I was like, wow, that's hilarious. I'm sitting there at work laughing when he said,
if you have red paint, you paint your barn red.
Yes. Yeah, those were. But in his press conference, he basically said, look, you can't fool 12 that often. And if you do, it's once. I mean, he's just seen too much. You just got to execute, play your game plan, and play solid football. And most certainly, you've got to tackle. I mean, you've really got to tackle. You can have a solid game plan, a solid plan. If you're not tackling effectively, that all goes out the window.
All right, here we go. Let's see. Question here. Who is capable of getting a lot of yards after the catch the way Mr. 3rd and 5th did when he was in Pittsburgh?
Not Ryan Switzer.
He could if he had space. He just needs a lot of space.
Yeah, like 3 football fields. Maybe Juju.
Juju absolutely can. He's a big boy. He's tough to bring down.
In the running backs, I think Samuels and Connor. I think Connor gets a few extra yards, not a ton, but Connor will squeak out 4 or 5 extra run after contact. Samuels is pretty elusive. So I think those are the 3.
Yeah, I mean, Samuels and Connor, don't forget those guys' yards after the catch. So I mean, it's from the backfield typically, but it'll be interesting. I do have to ask you about your thoughts on. I'm sure you saw the news that Mr. 3rd and 5th took to his Instagram story with his fine amounts and tagging the Raiders. I mean,
hey man, that guy,
that's nuts. I mean, he's like tempting people he's tempting the team to cut him. I feel like
this young people. If there's anybody young out there listening to the program, or he is giving you valuable lessons in what not to do, how to not ingratiate yourself to a new employer. I mean, if anything, like you can learn from him what not to do. Everything that he is doing is what you should not to do. And what it looks like to me is, and it's what you said a couple of weeks ago. I don't think he wants to play football. I think this is not something that he loves anymore. I think this is a job, and it's for a means to another end, which is his self promotion, not necessarily winning.
But if you've noticed, who's in all the commercials? Who's been in all, like, and if there's an NFL commercial, who's at least had a cameo? I'll give you a hint. He plays for the
Uh,
Steelers.
Juju.
Yes, he's everywhere. He's on the cover of Sports Illustrated this week. I mean, this guy is everywhere. And I guarantee you it's eating Mr. Third and Fifth alive. I mean, I bet it is killing him.
Oh, for
Killing him.
sure. I mean, what he's failed to realize is that, and it took me years to realize that, because I always used to just say, no, that doesn't matter, blah, blah, blah. Likability matters. I mean, likability matters. It's
Matters a
hard.
lot.
It's hard to measure, and it's hard to know if people are viewing you as a likable person or not. I'm not saying that people should go out and try to be likable, but man, being likable helps. And Antonio Brown is coming off as a capital T, add the U, add the R, and the D.
Absolutely. I couldn't say. Now here's a question. I'm not avoiding these Patriot questions that are being in the live chat right now. I just kind of want to save some of them for tonight's show. So there are some questions that aren't related about the upcoming game that I want to get Lance's perspective on, like Kevin's question. What do you think about Hines Ward being a part of the Jets as an assistant coach? He's the assistant to the wide receivers coach. What are your thoughts on that? That kind of made me sad. It's not. I don't like seeing him.
No, I saw it completely different.
Really?
I thought it as an opportunity for him to cut his teeth with a different organization, get some experience. And given that Ray Sherman is the temporary wide receiver coach, maybe now that Hines has cut his teeth, his work, he will have worked in the building for a year. That might be an opportunity to bring him back next year as, an assistant OC. And possibly not OC, assistant wide receiver coach, and possibly wide receiver coach. So let him go cut his teeth somewhere else and come back into the building with that experience. But here's the thing on Sherman. Did you know that he was a coach for Randy Moss, Chris Carter, T.O., and I think there was one more Hall of Fame wide receiver that he was their wide receiver coach. I was like, wow, he coached 3 Hall of Famers. And Chris Carter on his show went out to say that, look, the loss, he knew Daryl Drake and he gave his condolences and so on and so forth. But he said from a coaching perspective, the Steelers aren't losing anything. And in fact, that, getting Sherman as, having Sherman in the building was just, a godsend for them, given his ability. He really gave a strong vouch for Sherman and his ability to be a wide receiver coach.
Yeah, absolutely. Real quick, just someone brought up Vance McDonald in the upcoming game. If you were to guess and predict his stat line, what do you think it would be? Sunday night, week 1. What's Vance McDonald's stat line?
I'm going to say 6 targets.
Okay.
4 catches.
I'll agree with that.
And I'm going to say 60 yards, no touchdowns.
Really?
I wanted to say 52. I wanted to say 13 yards a catch. So I said 4 receptions. So yeah, I'm going to go 52 yards. I'm going to go 13 yards a catch. No touchdowns.
That wouldn't be a bad day. That wouldn't be a bad day. I could see that being in week 1, especially, but he's a player people are forgetting about, to be honest.
And to that guy that ripped me about my next, I said it will be. I was wrong about Joe Hayden's extension.
That was Darren, I think.
Yeah, I think it was. When I'm right about Vance's stats, I want some love in the super chat.
All right, that's between you and him, man. There's a lot of people thinking that Vance is going to have a big game. Someone said 5 catches, 70 yards. Someone said 5 for 80 and a touchdown. 10 targets, 7 receptions for 96 and a touch.
10 targets. Whoa.
I
Ain't a
don't
lot.
I don't know if anyone not named Juju will get 10 targets in this offense much. It's not good. I think it's going to be more spread out.
Yeah, I don't think a tight end got 10 targets once last year. So
I doubt it.
yeah, not with Mr. Flaky Feet, Mr. Third and Fifth. There's no way. Him and Juju got at least 30 targets a game. I mean, those guys ate up targets last year.
Okay, last question here before we call it a show, and then we'll see you back here in a couple hours for those watching live on YouTube. Do you think the Steelers should split carries between Connor and Samuels, or at least spell Connor more often to try to help his longevity?
No. I don't think you should do 50-50. I think you should give
Not
it to the better player.
50-50, not 50-50, but you remember when Butt Naked and Rob was here, he was 3 downs, never left the field. And even James Conner last year was 3 downs, never left the field. I don't think 50-50 is realistic, but do you see them saying, hey, take this series off and let Jalen Samuels go in? What are your thoughts?
Well, I did a show a while back. Yeah, I said it. The Steelers will run the tires off of James Conner. I think that was the title. And I think they will. I think that's in Mike Tomlin's wheelhouse. That's what he's about. He's about keeping the best players on the field to play the maximum amount of snaps. Where I think you may see Jalen Samuels is as a replacement for Xavier Grimble as the second tight end.
Dale has a good question for you, Lance. He said, why is everyone afraid to call people by their proper names? It sounds like high school. Well, there's just some guys we don't want to talk about on this show, but we do want to talk about them. We just don't want to say their names. So
yeah, I get it, Dale. I get it, Dale. I understand. Yeah, there's just some guys we don't want to say their name, and and we have to think of a creative way to say some guy number one. We're not going to say. It has to be more creative than that.
I agree.
And there's some ways you can identify that guy because he was traded for a third and a fifth, and he had flaky feet. So
and the other guy got robbed by 2 butt naked women.
Yes, I mean those are facts. So we're not making those things up. Hashtag facts. I mean those are. I mean, hey.
Okay.
And we're blocked by one of those 2 individuals. So
yes, the super sensitive one. All right. This is about as long as we wanted the show to go. So this is going to wrap up our Steelers one-on-one segment. We thank Max Starks for joining us for about 15 minutes to start the show. If you missed it, if you're just joining us, you can go back and watch it at the very beginning. He kicks off the show with us, and it was a really good way to kick off this week. We will be back tonight on YouTube. You can hear us on audio platforms probably later on tonight as I upload it or early tomorrow morning. And we'll be on with it's Bo Phillips for Pat's Pulpit. We'll get his take on this upcoming game. We'll get his prediction. And we will obviously break down the upcoming Steelers-Patriots game and get your questions ready because we're going to be doing a Q&A segment. So, Lance, send us off as you always do, my man.
As always, listeners, tune in, tell a friend, and subscribe.
All right. We'll see you in a few hours.